Hello again, this is another sketchbook video I just counted, and this is actually my 17th sketchbook that I've been painting. So this one is like landscape view, I guess they call it, wide angle, so they're extra wide. That's my palette. So taking advantage of this, I can do really tall things. This is a little sketch of my table where I paint in my guest room. It's done with all brush, no ink work. One day I hadn't done anything, so I feel guilty sometimes when I don't draw, so I'm just sitting there and I went, well, I guess I'll draw what's in front of me, which was my feet, and I had been drawing, so I call this Fat Feet, and you can see the rest of my living room here. Well, some of it anyways. This is another living room picture. I was very dissatisfied with the proportions, and also it was also tight, so I immediately painted another picture, but I didn't use any pen this time. It was all brushwork, and I kind of like that better. It's a little freer, and I like that wild and crazy foliage out the living room window. This is a little series of paintings from Jeffersonville when I went to visit my friends Danielle and John upstate, and this is looking out their picture window in the great room that they have across this beautiful stream that's next to their mill. They live in an old mill, and that's looking towards the downtown of Jeffersonville. This is sitting outside on their patio, looking up past the grape arbor to the upper reaches of their mill, which is a very high, had a lot of machinery in it, so it had very high number of stories. And another angle looking up at the upper stories and with the grape arbor. When I post these on Instagram, because of the format, I usually they fit very nicely in groups of 3. So I try to paint pictures in groups of 3. And so this is the third one. This is looking straight up and down, and that's my friend John under the grape arbor reading. Then I kind of went more conventional. This is a straight-on view of the mill. You can see it. It's really beautiful. And there's actually an old gas pump across the street and an old barn, which just adds to the scenic beauty. This is the sort of the entrance to Jeffersonville. They have a little gazebo and a laundromat and a beautiful bridge with hanging flower baskets that goes over the stream that curves around and goes by the mill. Actually gave the mill its power at one time. Let's see how this goes. So inside the house are a lot of flea market finds and antiques and a chaise lounge, and best of all, Malcolm, Danielle, and John's dog, who likes me and sort of follows me around when I'm there. The mill in one of its iterations was a bed and breakfast, and it has a wonderful kitchen where Danielle, a wonderful cook and baker, puts out great meals and even sourdough bread. Back for another view of that beautiful chaise lounge. There's a telescope for looking at the stars and those beautiful windows. I painted this on my the train ride back to New York on New Jersey Transit, and then I changed to the PATH train, which is a subway from New Jersey into New York, and then the subway to my house. So, back in New York, I met my friend Sylvie again, one of the urban sketchers, and we went to the Hudson River on the west side of Manhattan, and this is an old transfer station where they would transfer railroad cars onto train tracks in Manhattan coming from the west. Here you can see the structure for the the West Side Highway, which is raised above on these huge structures, and then there's benches and bike paths and walkways down below next to the river. Walking back up from the river that day, I couldn't resist stopping at a bench and drawing some of the local architecture on Riverside Drive. There's a very ornate mansion, and next to it is like a modern house with the beautiful repeating fire escapes. And there was a nice grandfather with his walker sitting on the bench in front of me in the sun-dappled shade. So back in the neighborhood, this is in Jackson Heights going into Woodside. It's a bunch of attached houses, and some guy on the end really went crazy with the renovating, and they did this Italianate decor with the peach. And you can see the other ones. Here's one with actually Old English the beams. I've been out and about with a mask all over the place in New York just to go drawing, and part of it was riding on the subways, and I thought, gee, this is they're not too crowded, as you can see, so I started a whole series of paintings of subway interiors. This was on the elevated, riding over Brooklyn, one of the subway stations, and the view was so nice I got off the train and sat on a bench and tried to draw all these different houses and things going on. It was I got to the end of the M line, and this is Middle Village, and Middle Village has a lot of cemeteries in it. So I had to check out the cemetery. Then I walked all the way to Bushwick on the way back. This was very interesting. It's it's sort of like a private house that turned into an Italian restaurant, and it's a pizza place actually. And in the back there's a garden, and they have that with a lot of umbrellas and chairs, so you can sit out back and have your meal. And then upstairs on the deck here is where is a private house with a little a tricycle. As I'm walking through Middle Village, I saw this very ornate building up on a hill, and so I walked up. I wondered what it was. I thought maybe it might be a library or something. It turns out it's the New York crematorium. And with all those cemeteries, I guess they needed someplace to cremate people. And it also has a nice little steam shovel that adds to the mix. Back on the subway, they have posters and things and advertisements. This one says "Long Live Dogs." I thought that was an odd thing, but good for them. So this is riding the M train coming back. I don't know if anybody saw the movie Parasite, but when they make the noodle dish, when they came home from the glamping, they asked for ramdun in English, and it's actually a dish made from a noodle called chapaghetti and noguri udon, and that's my version of it, sitting on the kitchen table that comes from my parents, which is like from the 1930s. So it's and actually that's one of those things. When I'm painting, often there's extra paint, so I just make a little picture on the side, and this was what was sitting in the table in the middle of my kitchen table. And that's a little church from Amsterdam with, I guess, a peach and a candle. So, and that's it for the first half of June.